All right, welcome to another Thought Leader Thursday, Alteryx edition. And you can see we actually have a few more people here and even a couple guests as well. Chris Lewis joining us from JLL, who's also an Alteryx ace. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, glad to be here.
Awesome. And we always like to start with something fun. So we have fun question of the day, right? And we're in February. So tell us a little bit about, let's see, the first Valentine's you ever got. Do you remember something fun about your first Valentine?
If I could remember all the way back to preschool when, all the kids had to get everyone a Valentine,
I remember in kindergarten, I was so excited to give out Valentine's Day. I just how when you were in kindergarten, you'd get in there and then they were like, okay, we're going to do this later. But I was like, no, I want to hand them out now. And I was handing them out to kids as I walked through the door, and they yelled at me. And not yelled, but told me. And then I had to take them back and give them back later. It was sad.
I miss all that chalky candy, man. Those little hearts with the I love you. I mean, I definitely remember the first couple boxes of those that I got and tried to eat. Right? It's like, yeah, I couldn't come up with some better candy in there. What about you guys? Actually, we need to pause here just for a second. So Trayson, you chimed in already. Trayson, welcome to Data Meeting and welcome to the Ace Fireside Chats.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited to be involved with this and learning and helping clients and, helping push the envelope like you guys have. Helping you guys push the envelope further, I guess.
And then my name's Andrew Kim. I'm here at Data Meeting as well and have been an ace for just like a lot of us here for coming up on a number of years. And let's see, first Valentine's, yeah, I already talked about the candy with the little I love you hearts and stuff. So, and then we have our first kid, so we got to dress him up in a cute little outfit, right? And we're already jealous of so many of those other pictures out there that have like little lip prints and stuff on the kids' cheeks. We need those embarrassing pictures. So I'm really excited for that. Yeah, and then let's work our way down as well. Fernando, you guys are down there in Brazil. When is Valentine's Day for you guys?
Fernando, I think your mic's not good, but I can answer that. Fernando can. It's June 12th.
June 12th.
Yeah. So it's it's way ahead. It's so for us in February we don't have any Valentine's Day or any celebration like that.
But for you guys, because Southern Hemisphere, right? Like, is it colder in June than in February?
Yeah, it is a little bit colder. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I always associate. yeah. I associate Valentine's with like the cold and stuff like that. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably there are some Brazilian folks in the chat that can confirm that.
All right. Yeah, Joao's saying it's close to Carnival, right?
No,
is it working now, my mic? Is it working?
Yeah, it's
all
working.
Right. Yes, and I agree with Joao actually. Since it's a commercial date, I think it's so close to Carnival, then we need to have another day to spend our money or maybe have another holiday.
Yeah, the Carnival holidays are in 2 weeks. So, yeah. So.
Great. Trayson, I think I can fit in your suitcase. You ready to fly down?
Yeah, let's go.
We're working on some yoga.
It's funny if I was to travel with my wife has a lot of bags, so it'd be like 6 of her bags and 1 of my bags that would have Andrew in it. So let's do it.
Awesome. So when we start talking about traveling, right? I think a lot of people get excited about hearing to become an ace because they're like, oh, you get to go to cool things like Inspire, right? But that journey really starts a long time before you get to speak at the conferences and do cool stuff while you're traveling. So let's go around and just kind of talk about when we became an ace and like what was that experience like becoming an ace.
Yeah, I'll start. So I was actually part of the first cohort that was not announced at a conference because of COVID. So I was in that first, 2020, June 2020 cohort, and we all have got to meet virtually and have yet to meet most aces in person. So it's funny you bring up traveling because, since COVID, travel really has been limited, and it's been great to be a part of the ACE. We do all the happy hours and stuff like that, but not being able to meet people in person for the first time, and it was definitely a different experience than most people have being introduced as an ACE.
Yeah, and I think there is something nice about like getting presented there on stage and having that be up on the big screen. I'm hoping that they do like an homage to that this year when we go in May to Inspire in Denver.
Yeah. I am lucky though, the year before I got to be on stage, losing in the Grand Prix.
I remember that.
Yeah, we all can't have the glory like Nicole Johnson.
Nicole, right? Yeah. It's funny. She's become sort of this legend for the Grand Prix. I can't tell you anybody else who's won other than Nicole, and I know everyone. And Philip won, and then he became an ace.
He beat
me. Katie Brooks won one year, who was an ace, but now she works at Alteryx, and she won that was the year they did the user groups, when like the user groups would submit it's like 2018, I think it was LA. Yeah, they did that one year, and so a lot of the Grand Prix winners.
Jared played the Grand Prix too, right?
Yeah.
Jared.
Yeah, you have to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
And it looks like we'll have some people joining us for Inspire and stuff coming here. And I think when we talk about that, right, that's where everybody kind of gets together and talks about being an ace, and you have people getting excited about wanting to do that, right? How do I work towards this?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I was just saying, becoming an ace for you and I was, I don't want to speak for you, but that was Vegas for us, it's funny, I totally forgot about putting the picture up on the screen until right now, and that was a super cool experience because, like, I don't know, it just solidifies like a lot of work that goes into it, and then there's like 1,000 to probably 5,000, who knows how many this year, people just sitting there like, oh, there's my, your face on the giant screen, like, hey, we did all this work. And back then, Libby was in charge of the program, and if any of you know Libby, she used to be the chief customer officer and was super involved with the customers. It was a good time. It was a good time. Young Alteryx was a lot of fun.
Tell us about that call, Trayson. Like, what was that call like?
That was super cool. So Libby called me. So I'll just say, just to put into perspective, I think I was like 25 or 26 at the time, and so I hadn't been in the workforce for that long, I guess. And and she called, and I was on a park bench because there's a park across the street from where I worked, and I was on this park bench, and she's just like, hey, we want to thank you for all the work you've been doing. We want to, invite you to Inspire this year, and we want to add you to the ACE group. And I was like, this is so cool because, again, just like it was this thing that I wanted and I worked for, and it's there is some community aspect to it, so you have to be involved enough with the community to people see your work, and so you're known. And I hate to use it like say this, but like you have to be somewhat popular in the community, and so like just being able to to go from this kid who was working and doing like accounts receivable work to having an impact in the community, it was really cool to go through that. And whenever I got that call, it was exciting.
Yeah, and I think when we kind of talk about that, right, I had a similar experience. I always like to share this with everyone because it just takes me back to some fun times at Universal's. But literally, I had one of my coworkers, Ben Wilson, if he's watching, a shout out to him for doing this. So we were signing up for some more training, and he literally put in my password, he put Andrew for Ace. And it was like Andrew for Ace, like 2017, right? And literally, we were like, haha, that's so funny. It's not going to happen that quick, right? And literally, Libby put something on the calendar for us for 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be talking to Libby. I need to get ready, right? So I'm like getting all my notes, my questions, like here's some product recommendations down. And she calls and she's like, so what's up? How's your day going? And I'm like, it's okay. What are we talking about right now? I don't know what to do. And then she said, like, have you heard of the ACE program? And I said, of course I've heard of the ACE program. And I think for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I definitely recommend checking out the Alteryx community because they have a great breakdown of what it actually is, right? And after she asked me that, she literally said, do you want to be a part of the program, right? So as we look at that, it's kind of changed over time as to whether you apply versus get selected, right? So you can do some level of nomination now that does occur. And then as we look at becoming part of that, it's really all those things that kind of led up to you becoming an ACE, right? So Trayson, you were talking about working on some of those workflows, right? Related to like logistics, right? Finance, etc. What were some of the other things you guys did that really contributed to you becoming an ACE?
Yeah, I can say like in my case was a mix of things, but one of them was definitely helping people in the community. So with solutions. So I think at the beginning of 2019, I was frequently on the leaderboard of solutions at the community. So I kind of, well, let's say I was popular at that time in the community, right? So I think this was one thing, but also the work that I was doing here in Brazil, spreading the word of Alteryx, like making presentations about Alteryx in some free events that we had with analytics and things like that. I think that also helped a lot because it showed that I was, trying to bring people to the community, trying to bring new users to Alteryx. And at that time, Tuvi was the program manager, and she called me and she asked me about that if I really liked doing that, right? So I think that's one of the things that are really important as part of the mission of being an ACE, helping each other, spread Alteryx around where you work or where you live. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think was basically not the same because I'm not into user groups or doing a lot of. Actually, I was doing a lot of webinars in Portuguese, but that's not seen by the English community. And I was talking, I think I don't really remember with who, but I think it was Tuvi, and she mentioned that she was valuing more English content than Portuguese content, and because I was asking, I don't really remember why, but for me, I started analyzing the community and seeing that, all right, all the top solution authors, everyone, the leaderboard are basically aces. So let's gamificate this thing. And I started to answer everything 24/7. I think for a year, I got to 500 solutions, but it was like I was working maybe even when I was sleeping, I had a notification uh, from the community in my email. I would wake up, open my notebook, and answer everything. And I was expecting to be announced in the 2020 cohort as well, since I was the top one contributor, and I was hoping for my trophy, but I got nothing. I'm still waiting for that trophy, but that's life, right?
Hey, Fernando, that almost sounds like if the notifications were waking up in the middle of the night, Chris, I know you have a newborn as well. That sounds like Alteryx was your baby, Fernando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a year,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah,
It's
it's interesting. Go ahead, Trayson.
Well, sorry, I was just gonna say that it's interesting how different like people's path to ASTM is. Like, if you look, I think I have. I'm gonna expose myself here. I may have like 7 or 8 solutions on the community, and I've been using
Same.
it for years. Yeah, yeah.
Same.
Where my path was really a lot of like, I used to speak a lot. Like my first probably year of using Alteryx, I think I spoke like at 6 or 7 events, and just talking about our journey as the organization I was at, and yeah, I guess just becoming visible, making yourself visible. That's what I always tell new aces. I'm like, if you got to make yourself as visible as possible, because how's anybody gonna know that you're even part of the community, I guess, if you're not. I mean, you do visibility through solutions. Some people do visibility through speaking engagements, through live webinars now are big. User groups, speaking at user groups, those are all important parts of the journey as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. My first conversation with Tuvi, my CSM at the time actually hooked me up. So shout out to Chris Parker. Awesome CSM. He, coming out of that call, I chatted with him and I was like, I'm never becoming an ace. Because it always seemed like the focus was solutions and you had to be on the community constantly. And you're working for a couple big retailers at the time. Like, you don't have time to be on community 24/7. You're usually putting in 60 to 70 hours a week just working your job. So I had to figure out a different way. And talking with Tuvi, I figured out, like, I think the year I became an ace, I think I posted 4, maybe 5 or 6 blog posts. And now as an ace, like, I'm not out there trying to do solutions, but there's a section where people can introduce themselves on community. You know, just welcoming them to community, showing them, hey, here's where you can go. You're talking about like this or that, you know, pointing them to use cases, pointing them to blog posts, discussion forums, the training. You know, the community is so vast that just giving them some slight direction can be really, really helpful too.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about the solutions, right, if we're talking about on community posts, I don't think it's as high as everybody thinks it is, right? Because remember that some of the solutions that we pose are there to kind of stick. And when you talk about the community, the advantages, you can literally use Designer and you can search some of those things. So those same questions don't really get asked again, unless like maybe you're in one of the newer communities, right, in a different language. So from a different locale. Those language differentials do provide opportunities to kind of share similar stories. And then when I look at that, right, also with the new products, like if you're trying to work on the amount of solutions that you have, the new products typically have a lot of questions where people can work on solutions. So like if you look at things like when Connect first came out, right? Alteryx just had this huge launch in regards to all the new cloud offerings, right? So you have Designer Cloud, you have AutoML, you have the purchase of Trifacta. There's going to be a lot of these things that kind of come in that I am really excited for. That when we kind of look at it, right, I see some opportunities for us to kind of take some of this to the next level, right? And there'll be opportunities for new individuals who have different experience or exposure to kind of work with that. So, yeah, what about you, Fernando? Because I know you and Val surround the community quite a bit more. How many solutions do you think you average a month?
Nowadays, not that much. I'm focusing on the server discussion panel, and they usually don't mark answers as correct. But on the designer page, when I was working on a daily basis, I think maybe 40 to 50. It really
Yeah.
depends on who's there answering
Yeah.
questions as well, because there are a few of the consultants there that's it seems like they don't work other than the community. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think at my time was like around 40 to 52, but yeah, I know that now it seems that it's very competitive because there are a couple of guys there that it's less than a minute or two and they are already posting there, so it's
Ooh.
almost impossible to grab it. But yeah, I mean, like it depends a little bit on the competition, to be honest, right? Because you have to be fast. I had some people, especially in the Brazil community, saying, "Oh, I'm not fast enough to answer the posts in English because the question comes up and 1 minute there's someone taking it there." So yeah, I mean, there's this component, but there's also a couple of questions that no one answers related to more complex stuff, or even like things related to integrations with Alteryx, like how do I connect to that old legacy system, or what's going on with that, and things like that you can also engage with.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that's exciting. Like, as you've been an ace for a while, right? You start actually, I feel like you start taking on even the harder problems, right? Or the ones that have, like, before it was, ooh, let me be the first to get the solution, right? And people have come up with different ways of scraping the community. So essentially, when a new post is out there, they'll go and respond right away and get the first solution, right? Typically, those are, you'll see like a lot of quick responses and ones that are easier to answer. And then, like, I think there's been stuff that's developed even amongst the ACE culture, right? Where it's like, hey, let's look at some of the stuff that's been out there the longest. Like, it's got a little bit of odor to it, right? Like, in terms of, you've got to figure out how long this has been sitting here, and what are some creative solutions that we can help individuals who maybe haven't figured out a way to solve this problem, right? And I think that's similar to what you see to a lot of different communities, is how do we essentially get to the bleeding edge, and part of that is by solving the hard stuff, right? So when we do that, some of it literally just requires groups or like think tanks almost to solve things, right? So we haven't really touched on user groups at all, and I feel like a lot of us have are either running user groups or have been part of different user groups. You guys want to talk a little bit about what part user groups played in you becoming an ACE or even being interested in it?
Yeah, I'll shift to that in a second, Andrew, and answer that question too. I'm noticing in the chat that I kind of want to bring up something that they're talking about. And even if you see a post that's marked as a solution, I would tell people who want to be more active and more visible to don't let a solution deter you from answering the question. Yes. Because Alteryx is so versatile in the way you can answer questions that sometimes you may answer it in a different way. And, several of us have probably led trainings. So you know that the way you present something may not connect with somebody, but somebody else can come in, describe it a different way, and it connects with them. So don't be deterred from ever posting the way you solve the problem, because that can be really, really helpful to somebody else. It may not be helpful to the poster, but it may be helpful to somebody who comes and looks at the question later on. So I just wanted to bring that up because that chat is something that what they're talking about is very relevant for sure. But user groups. So in 2018, when I first went to the conference, I learned about ACEs. In 2019, I went back to conference, was Grand Prix, and I was in a new city. There was no user group. So the big part of me becoming an ACE was I got to restart Austin and that user group. And I used Inspire to connect with people in the community team to figure out, okay, is there anybody else in Austin that I can connect with to kind of help lead? Because one thing that you can't do is lead a user group as an individual. It is a lot of work. The coordination, the trying to find speakers, and then doing the presentations and leading it, it's a lot of work, especially when, hopefully soon. I know some user groups have been able to get back to doing in person, but when they're in person, it's even more work. Virtual have made it a little bit easier because all you got to do is present virtually. But finding a place to hold the event and all of that can be even more taxing. So finding others in your area that are also interested is a really good way to kickstart them.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think as we kind of talk about that, right, user groups really do bring diversity. So Emil's posting an interesting question here. How as thought leaders can we reduce the gender gaps in analytics? Which is funny because this literally came up in like our private ACE chat, like completely unprompted. This came up in the ACE chat earlier today. We were talking a little bit about this, right? So when we kind of look at this, I think the part that's exciting is what is it specifically that like brings advantages by having maybe some of these in person or having them virtual, right? Have you seen any of that you've been able to help facilitate?
I know that Alteryx has an initiative called Women of Analytics, right? Yeah, I mean, like at this point, I mean, like in our user group, we always open basically field for anyone to speak at it, but there's a bigger issue in my opinion, and not trying to create a big discussion around that, but at the base of it, right? So like even like when we host a user group event, we see that they're not, for example, they're not many women joining the event, maybe because they don't have the opportunity to work with it or even be around that world, right? So but it's a good point. It's a good point that Emil brought, and I don't know if you guys have other thoughts on this.
Yeah, Trayson, I know you've done some work in this area. I want to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, so actually, funny enough, in Vegas, I spoke at there was a women's in data luncheon, and I was on the panel of that. Because I had a few gals that we had gotten working in Alteryx at the company I was at. But I guess the thing that I'm always up against, and I don't understand how to solve this, and I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on it too. But sorry, I'm trying to put this the best way. How do we become inclusive without forcing people into a role that maybe they don't want, or like, let me give an example. I see this chat here, and I don't see any women in the chat. So like, is it what is it about perhaps what we're doing here, or even in our space that just like it's not, there just aren't a lot of women doing it, and I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm not someone who feels like, I guess, oppressed or pushed away from this sort of thing. So I don't understand how to understand how to solve this problem. I'm sorry. I'm really curious, and I would like more information about it.
It's interesting because I've been in a leadership role now for going on about 3 years, and I don't know if this is coincidence, but my track record is I've hired, like thinking back on it, every single person I've hired was a woman. That is purely coincidental. I don't know, maybe it's not. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed is, changing the gender gap, changing the any sort of gap within analytics comes from the leaders.
Yeah.
Right. It as an individual contributor, you can do tons of things. You can, advocate for it. You can do that. But the leader is ultimately who brings in the diversity. And one of the things that I always tell people that when I'm interviewing, I don't look at the person, I look at their curiosity. Are they asking the right questions? Are they wanting to probe? Because analytics is all about curiosity.
Yeah.
You're driving to find an answer. How do you drive to find that answer? Where do you look? All of that is just curiosity. It doesn't matter who's curious or not.
And I think that's actually a big part of being an ace, right? If you look at a lot of the individuals who have been aces over the years, I actually just did a count. There's been over 80 aces in total, right? And when I look at that number and I see all the people there, just the level of curiosity, right? And anytime I get, even as aces, right, I still get giddy meeting all of you guys in person, right, and talking to others, right? And it's exciting to see that, just like it is almost like with, I'm sure, Tableau Zen Masters. I've talked to a handful of them and they have the same feeling, right? So when we see that, we're all human beings, right? And part of the curiosity is what drives us to create solutions on the community, help others solve problems, right? Or even as Chris is hinting here, Chris, if you want us to speak at the user groups, please just feel free to DM us directly, like on LinkedIn. I know a majority of us would love to do that. I literally just spoke at the Toronto user group last week, virtually. I didn't get to fly all the way up there. I might be freezing cold, or my wife might have killed me if I left her here with a teething baby. So, yeah, I think there's easily ways to make that possible. And as travel starts to open back up too, we would love to do that in person. So we're definitely approachable, I think, in that manner. And when we talk about the gender gap, right, in terms, especially in the analytics space or even STEM in general, that's what I see is like part of that stems from mentoring, from a simplistic perspective. So,
and Andrew, let's make an effort to bring a woman next time, right? To this discussion, right? Because I think that would add a lot as well, their opinion on that, and what we can do to promote that, right?
Either that or Talis, we got to take Yamil's hint here, and we got to just do more interesting topics, right? Maybe some cosmetic or some fashion data, and just kind of, or maybe baby data. I mean, baby data I think is interesting to everybody. I've got some of that I've been working with. Chris, I don't know if you've been working with IoT sensor data for babies.
Yeah.
Some of that.
Yep. We have an outlet sock for Lily that are now, you can't purchase them anymore because the FDA said no more. but we got one before they were taken off the market, and it has an insane amount of data, heart rate, oxygen levels, and then it even talks about, like, you go in and look at some of their graphs that they have. It talks about if they're in a deep sleep or not, just based off of analyzing, a couple of different metrics. So it's always fun. And then for me, in the first, like, I want to say 6 weeks of Lily being born, so this was like March, April of last year. We were recording pretty much everything: what she ate, when she ate, all the diapers. There's a lot, and I actually put that into like a spreadsheet and just did a like quick visual of it, and it's just to see how often things were happening on a weekly basis. You're quite busy in those first few weeks.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think like that data is going to become commonplace probably for our children, right? Literally, they're going to have that same amount of data pretty much their whole life. And I think when we kind of discuss that curiosity that we have, right, in regards to data, really stems back to that. And when I look at that, right, I think all of us have some level of curiosity about the data, and it's really just unlocking that. So, like, an example would be my wife does claims, right, with healthcare. And when we talk about some of that from an insurance perspective, the data that she works with, I don't want to stare at codes with an S all day, right? But she does a lot of that and forensic work and rules, right? So the amount of business rules that she looks at every day is mind-boggling to me. But she looks at some of the scripts and stuff that we write, right? And she's like, I don't want to do that. So I think as we kind of absorb that, it's really just kind of choosing our battles, right? And what it is that we want to focus on.
I can vouch for that. My wife's a pharmacist, and I had to show her something. Like, she was trying to make, they were trying to redo their labels at the company she worked for. And so I showed her how to like do it in Excel, and we were making it all like super pretty with different data and different points. And then I like was doing stuff on my work computer while she was on my personal computer doing that. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And it's just like 50 or 60 lines of code. And she's like, "I'll stick with my stuff."
And I think that's kind of the idea, right? Is there's even so many different applications to data, because even you being able to resize labels for your wife, that's, I think, a huge aspect. And you don't necessarily have to, the problems that you're seeing in the community, they don't have to be standard ones, right? Especially as you look at the direction that we're headed, there's image processing now, right? That opens up a whole nother level, right? So if we're talking about like clothes, if you look at some of the VR or AR capabilities, right? So you're talking about fit of clothes, or even like furniture being imposed in there, right? So all of that is data that's going to need to be processed as well. And when we look at that holistically, those problems, just like we were talking about earlier, right? When we first started as a community, the majority of those questions were like, how do I get connected to database XYZ, right? A lot of the questions are becoming more complex, and as we discuss those require more brain and thought power to be able to conquer those challenges, right? And we need to collectively work as a community to solve those. So let's also talk about this, like, because Inspire's coming up as an ACE, right? Do we have to speak at the conference? Because that's a common question that we get asked. Maybe someone's wanting to become an ACE, but they're scared of public speaking.
No.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
You don't. I remember, so I spoke at 17, 19, and then this year, so I didn't speak at 18 or the last year's event. But no, you are not required to. I go back to what I originally said, is that there is some, to like, part of being an ace is that you have this influence in a community, right? So I would say it's probably pretty hard to be a shy person in an ace. just to expand on the whole, do we have to speak? Because you probably will be, you need to be able to have these conversations with people. No, you don't need to speak, but you're going to have to find some other way. I mean, blogging, we go back to what Chris said earlier. He did 6 blogs in 1 year. I blog really heavily. I wish Patrick was still here, because he asked a question about how to get in other than solutions. Blogging's big. You can write for Alteryx. I had an independent blog. Ken Black, who's another ace, but he's also a Zen master, has an independent blog. Chris Love used to have one.
Doesn't Ken's just focus mostly on, like, it's all one topic too, isn't it? Mostly around, like, climate change.
I think that's just generally what he writes about, but he talks. I think it's also focused around how he's really doing work in Alteryx and Tableau and stuff. But I guess I haven't read it in a few weeks, so I don't know what he's doing right now.
Yeah, he has done quite a bit of work. I mean, I think all of it, the cumulative work that he does, is geared towards climate change as a larger topic. But, like, I loved even reading his one about the pool, right? And, like, some of the math that went into that, and then why the materials. So there's this newer topic area that's kind of come up, right? And it's called deep tech. So when we talk about deep tech, really it's a triage of kind of 3 things that you see that are most common. So it's literally technology, right? It's design, and then the final piece that exists there is the analytics, right? So, and when we look at those components coming together, that really is what provides some of the depth, right? Whether that's things that you see like on futuristic movies, right? Like, why does that plane look like a dragonfly, right? Or like all the stuff that we used to see on Star Trek, right? A lot of those things are becoming real. Like, I'm waiting for the day, especially as I get older now, right? I'm out there working in the yard a lot, and, like, before I used to get a cut and it'd be like, oh man, that'll be healed by like tomorrow. And now it's sitting there for a week or something, and I'm like, where's that spray where I can just spray and it'll heal everything, right? I see some of those things kind of coming along, especially as we integrate some of the tech, and you can see that in like very removed concepts like abstract and Netflix, right, where they discuss some of those topics being applied and kind of taking both from an artistic perspective and a design perspective, taking that to the next level. And you see that now even within the context of Alteryx, right? So I'll give a little bit of a sneak peek of what my topic is going to be for Inspire. And it's literally going to be on data sculpting and using LiDAR data, and processing that via Alteryx and creating 3D models via CNC and then 3D printing, right? So when we discuss those topics, I think that's the direction, maybe not a physical manifestation of building things, right? But it's either going into visualization, right, instead of just the numbers, or taking those different aspects. So if you have experience with those different tools, that really lends to us kind of accelerating the growth of the community and the number of people involved, right? So I look at like visualization, honestly, it's getting better. I feel like that environment typically has more gender diversity in it. And I would like to see some of that kind of pull back into earlier parts of the analytics process.
Sorry. I see Chris's note here talking about blogs, the difference between technical blogs, because there are very technical blogs and there are very open and free blogs, irreverent, as you could say. I also like to write very like I'm having a conversation, and part of that uh, occasionally means swearing or maybe not speaking in a way that you would expect from like a technical blog or like a public thing, if that makes sense. I have this. Uh, I might also have a reputation in the Ace community of being a little irreverent, so I can appreciate a good funny blog, Chris.
But I think that's part of our diversity, right? Because sometimes if it were all serious, right, would we really enjoy the job and like be passionate about things every day? So we all have different moods that we kind of go through, right?
Well, that's exactly it, and not only how we have fun, but how other people can become engaged. Because technical blogs put me right to sleep. Like I, and I'm sorry to say that for anyone that writes a technical blog, but it's like reading the. For me, it's like reading you know how they have cooking blogs and they're like, oh, I made this lasagna and this lasagna. Growing up, my mom used to make this lasagna every Sunday night, and every time I smell lasagna, it takes me back to when I was a child. I'm like, I don't care about that. Just give me this 15 steps I need to make the lasagna and then go on. So I have a really hard time sometimes with that. But yes, I like the free discussion. And
Yes.
if that, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, I've been kind of all over the board with blogs. I've written one on XML, which is much more technical in a sense when you're talking about Alteryx. And then I've written a blog about how Alteryx changed my career, there was literally zero technical in that.
Yeah.
It was just literally talking about my experience in my career. So I try to be all over the place. As long as I feel I am sharing something that can benefit the community. That's one thing that I think blogs have the advantage of that solutions don't. You can just share your experience and hope that it helps somebody in some fashion.
Exactly. Do you guys, Fernando and Thomas? I have to ask. I know that like the English speaking community has a lot of blogging. Is that popular in like the Portuguese community as well, or sorry, Portuguese speaking community?
Of course, there are way less blog posts there, right? But yes, but I think there's still a problem to try to bring people to the community inside the Alteryx community itself, because there are a lot of people that do stuff on their own, right? So someone works at a company and they develop something and then write a LinkedIn post about it, right? And they think it's cool, but I think sometimes we have a hard time. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but just to bring people into the Alteryx community and keep them there. Like be aware of new posts and new posts and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's growing to a certain level. I also write some blog posts in Portuguese because there's a lack of content in Portuguese. But I still think like people sometimes I think they like to do things on their own, right? And it's hard to bring everyone inside a community.
Is it? Do you think that's specific to the Alteryx community, or just like perhaps the Brazilian Portuguese community as a whole prefers that centralized LinkedIn space?
No, not really. It's yeah. I used to, for example, I used to be part of the Tableau community. I used to be a frequent user there, and there's also the same problem. Like a lot of people doing outside stuff, writing their own thing, but it was hard to basically get everyone together and bring that spirit of community. And I don't know, maybe it's how people treat work, right? Or it's more like a cultural thing, I would say. Like maybe it's not. They want to solve their problem, and I'm not saying like Brazilians don't like to be in a community. It's not like that, but it's this tech side. I feel it still needs to grow a little bit, and that spirit of community that is very popular out there in the world, it still needs to grow in here. So that's why I think it's important for us as aces, like me, Fernando. There's also Carlos, who is another Brazilian ace, to promote those kinds of events and see, okay, show the value of how important it is to share content in the community and not be on your own bubble. And I'm doing my project at my company, okay, and I'm just gonna do that. I'm not gonna get together with other people and share that and network and do stuff like that. But it takes time. Like I think it's related a little bit around also of how evolved we are in terms of technology and things like that.
Yeah, and I think adding to that is it's not easy for you to find the Brazilian user group inside the community. Of course, you can search on Google and you will be able to find it. But even myself, I don't really know how to get to the link to the Brazilian community. So I think it's also a marketing problem. So for Brazilian users, if try searching for anything related to Alteryx, all the tools are basically in English. Of course, have translations, but all basically in English. Is always gonna point to an English link, and for
Yeah.
you to see the user group, for example, try doing this as an exercise. Try finding the Brazilian user group by navigating the community. It's not easy.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that's true. It's kind of a rule here also. If you're in the world of technology, you need to know English a little bit, right? So people usually look for the English posts, but that's on their essence. So it's not something like you're gonna find more content in English because you basically have the whole world to look for, right? It's not
Yeah.
only Brazilians, it's not only Americans as well, or British. It's everyone in the world that produces English content. So there's also that. But yeah, it's good sometimes to help people who don't know much English or feel more comfortable with Portuguese content. But in, as a general rule, I would say like the expert users, they go for the English content directly. You know.
Yeah, so what I do think is different about the Brazil community, right, especially is your YouTube content is on point, though. I will say that compared to like some of what we see here in the U.S. And when I look at that, I think it's more just a choice in regards to what that venue is. So, like Trayson, you were talking about this the other day. You were like, "Hey, should we be doing Twitch stream for Alteryx, right?" So, if you guys want to see a Twitch stream, make sure you put some comments in the chat, right? And we can work on booting something like that up.
Please put comments in the chat because I want to do it so bad.
I usually have
sorry.
some sort of Twitch stream going on in the background while I'm working.
Yeah, there you go. And I think especially if we want to talk about reaching like a younger generation, even I think that's a good way to do it because Twitch is fun. Sorry, let me jump back to the thing that you were saying, Talis, and I apologize. I know we're coming up on time here. Is it perhaps so? One of the things I'm just now thinking about this whole like if there is a vacuum in the availability of like Brazilian, Portuguese resources, is that actually not true? In fact, maybe it's not as the demand for that isn't there because there is also the because everyone speaks English or in some capacity. Is that fair to say, or is there still very much a need for an increased presence of Portuguese content?
I think it's a mix of them because, like when we talk about technology, we're talking about things that can fit anywhere in the world, right? So if English is a common language to most countries, people will try to learn English to learn more, right? I think that's kind of the thing here. Not only here, but in other parts of the world. So I think people are used to that, and it's something like it's more like here in Brazil. It's more like you need to know English if you want to do well in the technology. You're in your technology career, right? It's something that it's incentivized here. So I think that's why it's not really useful for at least experts and people who are truly involved to write stuff in their own language at some level. It's good for beginners or for people who are starting their careers and things like that, people who are young, right? But for people who are already consolidated in their careers, and I think they already go for the English content, so they don't really care too much about having the content in their own language.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting we brought up Twitch too. I actually posed to the other Austin user group leaders of like actually streaming our user groups on Twitch and seeing if that would actually get a broader group interested. Just get it out beyond just like the community posting, but actually getting it on Twitch and some other streaming platform, and then anybody who wanted to go back and see old videos would have them right there to just go through and kind of see.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's, going to be in part on us and those of you watching really to shape the future of that, right? And when we kind of look at that, it's these revolutionary ideas that, like, I want to do a big shout out here real quick to the team as we wrap up. Data Meaning was announced Partner of the Year again for the Americas. That was the largest award that they had for Alteryx this year. And we did it again. And what's incredible about that is really it's some of these ideas like doing this live stream, etc., that really kind of make an impact on that. And then just sharing with the community. So it's all about how can you go about helping, right? That's being part of the spirit of being an ace. And when we kind of look at that, right, you can see that post literally here and the team here with a really cool McLaren helmet. And what's exciting as we kind of look at this, right, is this is really helping us continue to shape the future. And as we do that, we would love to hear from everyone that's joining us here today or watching this recorded, right? What are some of the things that you would like to see? And not just from us. Literally, this is going to be ACES worldwide, right? Including Chris here with us today. We're all part of really amazing companies, right? And we're here to help. We're excited to help. And we just want to help solve the problems of tomorrow, right? Yeah, I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thanks for having me.
Yeah, and then obviously we've got other topics coming up here in the future, right? So as we look at Thought Leader Thursdays, right? What are some of the ones that we have coming up that are going to be big? The next one for literally next month is going to be Alteryx APIs. So we're going to get like full tilt technical now that we've gone from the soft stuff, right? And then Chris, I know you're going to be joining us for acing the advanced cert. So for those looking to shape some Q2, if you've been working on, we just did the core cert last month. If you've been working on that, this quarter, right? We're really excited to give some tips for Q2 as well.
Yeah, I have to redo mine in April, so I'll be coming fresh off of re-getting mine.
Nice. Nice. I'm glad they don't throw any like crazy intelligence suite questions in there, right? You know, it'd be such a big cross section of knowledge that we got to learn. It's going to be exciting to see when some of that stuff gets factored in. PDF processing, which types of PDFs can we process today? So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that with some of the Alteryx APIs. So thank you everyone for watching. Happy Thursday to everyone. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to hear more about all the different shows that we have here, and then catch us on the next Thought Leader Thursday for Alteryx. Happy Thursday.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.